Welcome to Agentic Pathcast, where we explore how Agentic AI moves from hype to enterprise operating system. Today, we're talking about Agentic Automation 2026. Right now, it feels like everyone is talking about AI agents. Every company is experimenting with them, every vendor is pushing them, and every leadership team is trying to figure out what they actually mean for the business. But here's the reality. Very few organizations have moved beyond experiments. Even fewer are running real scaled systems that deliver consistent value. So in this episode, I want to simplify things. I'll explain where the agentic automation actually is, what's changed in 2026, and what separates the companies that are scaling this successfully from the ones that are stuck in pilot mode. Let's start with the definition. Agentic automation is about an AI system that can perceive, reason, plan, and act to complete tasks on their own. But that definition doesn't really capture what's important. The real shift is not just better AI, it's a change in how works get done. We are moving from a world where people do the work themselves to a world where systems do the work and people supervise those systems. And those systems aren't just one agent. They're made up of multiple agents working together inside a workflow. That's why one idea keeps coming up again and again in real deployment. The workflow matters more than the agent. If you focus on building an agent, you'll get something that looks impressive in a demo. But if you focus on the workflow, how work actually flows through the business, that's where you start to get real outcomes. So why does it matter now? Because 2026 is where things are starting to shift from experimentation to real systems. There are three big changes driving that. The first is the move from single agents to systems. Until recently, most of the cases involved one agent doing one thing. Now organizations are building systems where multiple agents each handle a specific part of the process. For example, one agent might extract information from a document, another checks the data, another decides what to do next, and another actually executes the action. All of that is coordinating through something called an orchestration layer. That's where things get more complex, but also where most of the value comes from. The second shift is from pilots to production. A lot of AI projects don't fail because the technology is bad. They fail because they never get integrated into real workflows. In fact, most Gen AI pilots never scale. And the reason is simple. A standalone AI tool doesn't create value on its own. Value only shows up when the AI is embedded into the systems that actually run the business. The third shift is in how companies actually think about ROI. In the past, automation was mainly about reducing costs. Now it's about increasing output without increasing headcount. In other words, doing more with the same number of people. That's what people mean when they talk about augmented organizations. So let's make this real. Where are companies actually seeing results today? One of the clearest areas is finance and operations. And by that, I mean all the day-to-day processes that keep the business running. Things like handling invoices, applying cash, recognizing revenue, or reviewing contracts. These are not simple tasks. They involve multiple steps, different systems, and a lot of unstructured data, which is exactly why agentic systems work well here. Instead of a person manually moving through each step, you have a system that can handle the entire flow from start to finish. The result is faster processing, fewer errors, and much less manual effort. Another area is ERP, especially SAP transformation. If you've ever been involved in an SAP project, you know how complex and risky they are. What we're seeing now is automation being used not just to support these projects, but to fundamentally improve them. Agents can accelerate migration, reduce testing risk, and validate data as it moves through the system. But the most important shift is this. Automation is no longer something you add at the end. It's something you design into the system from the very beginning. And then there's testing. Testing used to be a manual, time-consuming process. Now agents can generate test cases automatically, continuously validate systems, and even make decisions about whether a release is ready. Which means testing becomes continuous and increasingly autonomous. If you look at the organizations that are getting real value from this, they tend to follow the same pattern. First, they start small. They don't try to transform the entire company at once. Instead, they pick one or two high-impact use cases where the value is clear and measurable. Second, they focus on workflows. They don't get distracted by tools or models. They focus on how work actually happens and how that work can be redesigned. And third, they think about orchestration early. As soon as you have more than one agent, coordination becomes critical. Without it, you end up with fragmented systems, duplicated logic, and no clear control. This is what many teams are starting to experience as agent sprawl. At the same time, a lot of these initiatives don't succeed. And again, the reasons are pretty consistent. The first is what I'd call the pilot trap. Teams building something that looks impressive, but it never becomes part of a real production system. The second is governance. Agentic systems raise a difficult question. Who is actually responsible for decisions made by AI? If that's not clearly defined, organizations hesitate to trust them, which is why human in the loop is so important. And the third issue is leadership alignment. This is not just a technical change. It's a change in how decisions are made, how risk is managed, and how work is structured. Without alignment at that level, projects tend to stall. So, if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's this. Agentic automation is not about building smarter tools. It's about redesigning better systems of work. And the companies that succeed won't be the ones with the most advanced AI. They'll be the ones that figure out how to integrate that AI into real workflows and scale it across the business. Thanks for listening to Agentic Podcast. Next time, we'll break down exactly why most AI pilots fail and what it actually takes to scale them. Until then, stop asking what your agent can do and start asking what systems you are building. This is Nick Kabanev. See you in the next one.